Listen, I agree with that totally, but things are the way they are until they aren't. Dak Prescott hasn't shown us that he can show up in the big moments. And so any criticism he receives from Stephen A., from Chris Canty, from RC, all of those criticisms are warranted. But when you say a guy has the talent, I don't think we could speak to what he has in here. I think it's about watching a man mature, watching a man grow, watching him get into those moments and finally persevere. What I'm not going to say about a man that has gone through what Dak Prescott has gone through, that has lost what Dak Prescott has lost in his personal life, and continued to be the dude that stands at that microphone and presents himself like that, is to say that he got what it takes in here. Now, it may not produce, or we may not see it on the football field in the rounds of the playoffs. We want to see it. That's a physical thing that comes from here that you got to make decisions. But I ain't going to say the dude ain't got that.
Thank you, Ryan Clark. Oh, and hold on. I do want to be clear before we get into the rest of this. I don't necessarily agree with Ryan Clark when he says that Dak hasn't shown up in big moments, because then that makes it seem like he's a career choker, when that's not the case. You can actually look at Pro Football Reference that he's accounted for 12 career fourth quarter comebacks and 20 game-winning drives in the regular season. And he did both of those things against Seattle in the playoffs, leading to a victory as well. So Dak Prescott has shown up in some big moments, but I'm assuming he's more so talking about like championships and getting to the championship round in the Super Bowl. So let's continue. Ladies and gentlemen, the clip that we just saw was Ryan Clark correcting and impassionately debating his co-host and his co-panelists on First Take as they're having a debate concerning the comments that Dak Prescott made yesterday in his media availability, when essentially he was asked about what Micah Parsons has been discussing as far as how the media covers the Cowboys. Dak had this to say.
What are your thoughts on Micah taking on the media, defending you and defending the team? I don't know if you've seen any of that at all. It's hard to miss.
Hard to miss. I try to miss a lot of it, but hard to miss. He's got the platform. Obviously, you appreciate it as a teammate when you know another teammate's sticking up for you. But then the sense of, I guess, comparing my position or us to other teams. I've been on this organization 8 years, going on in my 8th year, that whether you about it or not, it's not going to stop. That's just how it goes. And to me, it's fun. It's fun because when things go our way and when we win this thing, it's going to make it all that much sweeter. And say what you want, we get to go out there and we get to do it. So he can talk all he wants. It's Michael.
Now, this is exactly what you want your quarterback to say, especially if you're going to be the quarterback of, quote-unquote, America's team. You need to have a certain degree of ignorance as it pertains to the criticism and noise coming from outside the building. And I'm so glad that Ryan Clark took this stance, and he had a very passionate response as it pertains to the conversation being held around Dak Prescott today on First Take, as they were essentially questioning whether or not he had the heart to be able to do what needs to be done to carry the Cowboys to the promised land. And Ryan Clark brought up something that I think a lot of people overlook. Outside of the fact that Dak Prescott is the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, which is 100% the most heavily scrutinized position in the entire National Football League, 100%. But through his time in the NFL, Dak Prescott has had to deal with losses and situations that would quite honestly break the average man. Put the added stresses and pressures and expectations of an entire franchise and almost 30 years worth of ineptitude on his shoulders, and you have a recipe for disaster. And this is what Ryan Clark was speaking to. And this is something that I feel us as Cowboys fans severely underestimate as it pertains to who can actually put that star on their helmet, go out there week in and week out, handle the pressure, handle the stress, and perform at an above average level. And at the end of the day, that's really all you can hope for any player on your team, is for the GM and the people in the front office to put above average players out on that field that are able to fill the needs of that position. And at that point, you're hoping for health, a proper system and structure, a little bit of luck, and catching fire at the right time in order to go and win a championship. Hell, we've seen teams like the old New York Giants with Eli Manning catch fire at the end of the season after coming off of pretty much a subpar regular season and be able to go on and beat what was considered one of the best teams in the history of the NFL. So winning a Super Bowl is more than just about who you have playing quarterback or what players you have on the field at any given time. There's a ton of variables that have to come together to make that goal a reality. And I'm glad that Ryan Clark is going out of his way to put the whole sports debate dialogue into proper perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand that we live in a microwave society and people want instant success. Hell, every fan of every NFL team expects their quarterback and expects their teams to win a Super Bowl at some point. And obviously, if they don't, disappointment ensues. And that's all fair game. When players don't perform the way that they should, criticism will follow. That is all fair game, including for even Dak Prescott. But I am so glad that Ryan Clark had the wherewithal to put this entire debate into perspective. See, now you're starting to tread some dangerous waters because as Ryan Clark has already illustrated and I mentioned previously, Dak Prescott has probably had one of the roughest goes at it as far as quarterbacks go in the National Football League with just all the different losses he suffered. And again, the fact that he's having to play quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, which is a headache in itself. But Ryan Clark came to Dak Prescott's defense because Stephen A was kind of getting out of pocket here and some of the other people on the panel was getting out of pocket because when you start to go and question whether or not a man has enough mental fortitude or enough strength in order to endure certain situations, but then you try to discount the strength that he's already displayed up until this point, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when you start to get out of the waters of just having a general sports debate and you get into the area of slander in a sense, because I've started to see this same trend pop up more and more ever since Skip Bayless started pounding the table talking about, oh, Dak Prescott isn't a leader, Dak Prescott isn't this or that. Well, Ryan Clark said it perfectly on his Twitter account. He said, I am not a Dak apologist. If he doesn't produce on the field in the big moments, he should be scrutinized like any other quarterback, and I agree. I do believe in him. When I say him, I mean the man. I will never question his heart, his drive, nor his ability to persevere. He's overcome so much loss and adversity to be in this place in life and career. There's no way those things don't make you a better leader, a better man, a better quarterback. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it can't. Dude is built through fire, and that heat forges the strongest steel. He still has time to write his story. And I think that's what people are losing in all of this. And by people, I mean us as Dallas Cowboys fans. We're not even talking about the media at this point. In sports, you cannot judge the totality of a man's career based off of 1 week, 1 game, or 1 season. You have to look at the entire book that he has written and then judge for yourself whether or not that book was actually worth reading. And I think if more sports fans kind of understood this thought process, that would keep people from being so emotional and swinging so high and so low on the emotional roller coaster when something good or bad happens, and instead it would help them keep an even keel. They can root for their team in a healthy fashion, in a way that it won't negatively affect you if your team loses. You won't be ready to fire everyone and go rob a bank and commit arson if your team loses. You'll be able to see the loss for what it is, identify what that problem was, have a discussion if you want to about what you think that problem may have been, and then move on and prepare for the next week until the end of that season when you can finally take a look at what happened in totality for that entire season. And then you start to make some of your judgments and you start to say what did and didn't happen. But as far as trying to degrade what Dak Prescott is as a quarterback, and even more so as a human being, and that's what you have to kind of start to think about as a fan. Who are the players representing your teams? Yes, Dak Prescott is an amazing man, but whether or not you want to admit it or not, as a hater or troll or whatever you want to call it, he is also proven to be an above average NFL quarterback, and a quarterback that has earned the right to be a franchise QB. So now us as fans, we have to take a step back and realize, guys, we've only had a handful, if that, of quarterbacks that you can consider a franchise QB come through the Dallas Cowboys. We have only had Troy Aikman, Roger Staubach, Tony Romo, now Dak Prescott, and in between that, it was a bunch of run-of-the-mill guys that were replaceable and interchangeable. So that's what we have to understand as fans is, while we may not feel like that position is 100% perfect, or we may not feel like Dak is the perfect model of what a quarterback should be skill-wise on that field, Dak is more than good enough to lead his team. He is more than good enough to make the throws that are needed to be made at the right times in the game. He has shown that he's capable of doing all of these things. At this point, we're all just waiting for the Cowboys to put it all together at the right time and for him to truly live up to those larger-than-life moments, and that's really going to push him into that next threshold and help him escape from some of the criticism that he has faced. We have to give these situations time to play out. As a fan, it is foolish to sit here and completely count yourself out in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. The season is over when the last game is played. We cannot continue to say what someone is and isn't capable of when their book is still being written. And that's the point that Ryan Clark was trying to make. And I just thought this was a beautiful discussion to have, because people have kind of gotten away from the fact that, hey man, it's super hard to win in professional sports. And there's fan bases and teams and players, and some of the best players of all time have never, ever even won anything in sports. And some of the best quarterbacks of all time waited a longer time than what Dak Prescott has played for the Cowboys to win their first championship. Look at Drew Brees. Look at Peyton Manning. He won in year 8. Drew Brees won after that. So some of the best quarterbacks that you know of that have won Super Bowls had to win them later into their careers. And that's just how things happen sometimes, guys. So as fans, we need to chill out. We need to be patient. We need to let the team become what it is. And then at the end of the season, if they disappoint us, that's when we burn the houses down. Either way, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Dak Attack Show, and subscribe to the channel for more Cowboys and Dak Prescott content on the regular. Until next time, you know how we end these videos. How about them Cowboys?
Calling me, texting me, paging me, asking me, am I still the ball? Y'all usually check on me. Listen. I'm still them boys. Hey! Woo! Hey! I'm still them boys.